Here we are. We're in it. Turn up my mic a little bit there. Okay, how are things sounding out there? Everything good?
Yeah, we have our faithful listener, Jessica. Thank you. It's me.
It is Nat. It's Nat in a sloth onesie. She decided to be comfy for today's show.
Yeah, so I'm
yeah.
on time and wardrobe.
Yeah,
up.
she's here at the beginning of the show. Yeah,
Yeah.
she didn't just waltz in.
Yeah.
some point
Well,
halfway
it's
through.
because we had dinner early enough that I was able to like digest and be conscious and come on down. You hear us. Yay, huzzah.
All right, fantastic. I like when everything works.
Yeah.
It's a
right.
good start.
Mm.
All right.
So everything is awful.
Yeah. Here, I'm not sure which one to start with. From an update that I got the other day. Okay, so like I don't know. I guess let's start from the beginning.
We
on
haven't
this.
been here for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so
It's been a
last
couple weeks.
weekend-
A lot of things have happened. Last weekend was Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So naturally, we did not do a show because we were
Busy.
out, doing Thanksgiving dinner and stuff.
Mhm.
And so, of course, in the past week, things like, the relation between Israel and Palestine has never been good, obviously. But things took a pretty nasty turn last week when Hamas basically killed 1,200 civilians
Mhm.
in one foul swoop, and of course the fallout of that has been predictable
Mhm.
in all the worst ways.
Yeah.
It tells.
So Israel has basically said that those are rookie numbers. Let me show you how it's really done.
Yeah, that's basically the long and short of it.
Mhm.
Like the conflict can be summed up. I actually wish I had the webcomic that I saw, but it basically depicting 70 years of Israel bombing the shit out of Palestine,
Mhm.
and then like one little piddly rocket from Hamas flying over into Israel, and suddenly all bets are off. And like, and it's so ridiculous that one of the main things you're seeing in the discourse around this is if somebody is speaking in the slightest bit of sympathy for the plight of Palestinians,
Mhm.
they feel this spastic, chronic need to pad the shit out of their statements with, by the way, I don't support Hamas. I don't support terrorism. Don't support it. Don't support it. And it's like, of course you don't. That is the base mode of thinking that most people should be on, right?
Yeah.
But that is not the base mode of thinking of the Israeli government and the people that enable and support them.
Mhm.
Their goal has obviously been quite violent and genocidal.
Mhm.
So what has really happened here, and what it is more effectively looked at as, is Hamas did not commit a terrorist act unprompted, which was some of the baffling rhetoric you saw out of the gate. Unprompted, Hamas did this. No, it was not it was not unprompted, and that in no way is a apologia for killing civilians.
Mhm.
But let's be real here: unprompted
Is not
is
an
not the
accurate
word.
term.
It is not accurate,
No.
and it's bafflingly inaccurate. In
Mhm.
fact, we talked a while before about because of the Barbenheimer memes in Japan's reaction to Barbenheimer. And how they feel about nuclear bombs. Even in their mourning of their greatest national tragedy, they point out their own role in what brought on those events. Not that it somehow, is forgiveness or apologia for the U.S. dropping those bombs on them. It's just simply them recognizing, like, yeah, we were a part of this war, and it was bad. We did bad things in this war. And, so again, in the same capacity that how violent and disgusting the U.S. bombing of Japan was, it was not unprompted, right? So like, let's just be like
So, like,
accurate with our words
unprompted
here.
would imply that, like, we've been great neighbors
Yeah.
for hundreds of years. Literally, nothing has had any bad
It's like
blood
if we
between
went
us.
and like killed our next door neighbors that we've literally never spoken to before.
Yeah, or
Like, I've never talked to my
or whom
neighbor.
we had over for barbecue the other day, and everything's all
Yeah,
chill and
yeah,
stuff, right?
and we
Like,
just like the friendly barbecue, and it's just like stab, you know.
yeah, that would be unprompted. So
Yeah.
just to say that, under the context of apartheid, then
Yeah.
it's not unprompted. But anyway, like, everyone can get super sticky with semantics, so I'm not terribly interested in going down that.
Yeah,
really any
but
further.
like an important thing to recognize in a lot of propaganda around this, and why I'm kind of getting a bit semantic and rhetorical, I guess, is because that's what drives a lot of this propaganda.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like using words like unprompted,
Yeah.
and using words like terrorism in certain capacities. Like, we apply the word terrorism accurately to the civilian attack that Hamas had committed, right? Why do we not consider it acts of terrorism when when Israel for 70 years has bombed and murdered and brutalized Palestinian citizens?
Yeah, dead versus killed.
Dead
Exactly,
versus
like,
killed. Oh yeah, the passive language,
Yeah.
right? Like, even what was it? Biden's press secretary. I showed you that tweet the other day. I
Yeah.
don't have it pulled up right now, but basically saying, these journalists, these American journalists, died or they were injured. They were injured while in Israel, and like everybody's reply.
Thought they're injured in Lebanon.
Or
Isn't that crazy?
Lebanon or something like that. As a result of Israel's attack, of Israel's aggression, they were killed. They were killed by Israel. But the press secretary of the United States doesn't not necessarily want to say explicitly that Israel's weapons killed American journalists, right? So it's American journalists were injured. They were harmed, and it just happened. It didn't happen because of anybody, right? We're not going to say that.
No.
It just happened.
Could have
And it was
happened to
very sad.
anybody.
And it's and I was proud to see that from most of the people in my kind of corner of Twitter, asking the very obvious question. Oh, gee, that's tragic. How'd they die? Right?
Yeah.
Like
Old age.
Yeah. They just all had collective heart attacks. Or something. It's just so ridiculous. And that stuff needs to be talked about, needs to be called out and recognized for what it is, because it is deliberately manipulative. And when you talk about, mainstream media propagandizing people, that is one of the most explicit examples of it I can think of. And so if you want to call out mainstream media for being shit-heels, that's it right there.
That's a great opportunity.
Yeah, that is an excellent opportunity to do that. But of course, the people on the right most interested in calling mainstream media shit-heels, that's not the sort of thing they're interested in, of course. They're interested in towing the Israel line, which seems very odd. Like, to a lot of people who aren't familiar with a lot of this politically, might find it a bit confusing that, liberals and conservatives alike are so aligned on this topic. So there's a lot of reasons for that, varying reasons. That's where the situation gets complicated. If you want to unpack why certain groups support Israel's acts of terrorism and not Palestine, and so on and so forth, that's where it gets a little complicated. What isn't complicated is the true nature of this conflict, and that is Israel's apartheid state and the brutalization of the Palestinian people. That's the root of all of this. And they are the most powerful country in the Middle East. They have full backing not only of the United States, but most of the first world. Through successful lobbying and politicking and networking, the fact that it gives the United States a foothold in the Middle East that's very dependable to them, and that can be politically convenient in a number of ways. See, that all gets like complicated, but the long and the short of it is, liberals and conservatives alike on this side of the world express overwhelming support for Israel. And for the ones that don't, they experience some pretty harsh clapback. Like, here, go on. I'm going to pull something up.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and that one of the ways to shut down discussion is to say that not supporting Israel means not supporting Jews or Israelis, which they're not the same deal, right? So it's the same kind of thing where, let's say that Americans under Trump, we don't support America. I can't even just say America and Trump because, America has its whole bag of, really awful stuff. And so I can't say that begins and ends with him. Maybe I picked a bad example. Anyway, let's just a particular country under a oppressive government. It's just to say that you place that in the shoulders of all of the citizens outright. That's misdirecting things. And to say that if you haven't clarified the people versus the state, well, then clearly you're putting them all under one roof.
Yeah.
I don't think that's accurate either.
Yeah,
right?
It's inaccurate in a number of ways. Like when you're talking about it in both direction, how Israeli and Jew is not a synonymous thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hamas and Palestinians are not a synonymous thing.
Mm-hmm.
So to draw them as such is just it's racist. First of all, to say that where they're from and who they are, physically and genetically determines somehow what their belief system is, and that belief system means that they're evil, and this is a genetic thing. That's just classic fucking racism, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, sorry, where were you going with that? I didn't want to distract too much from your point.
Oh, I've lost the plot.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, TLDR, you can be against the government of Israel's extermination policies and not be an anti-Semitic weirdo jerkface.
And here is a good example of that. Rabbi, I'm probably going to butcher saying this, Rabbi Yisrael David Weiss. I hope I'm pronouncing that at least remotely correctly. Here's what this about that.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rabbi Yisrael David Weiss of Neturei Karta International, Jews United Against Zionism. Jews around the world stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine on this International Al-Quds Day, the day that people around the world mourn the occupation of Al-Quds, of Jerusalem. Of course, this is not only Jerusalem, Al-Quds, that we mourn the entire occupation of Palestine. We as Jews want the world to know that Judaism means subservience to God. It means to uphold the Torah. And the Torah expressly forbids to steal and to kill, and to torture, and to harm, and to oppress anybody, certainly not the people of Palestine. The Torah forbids that we are to have a Jewish homeland since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago. It's expressly forbidden even in an uninhabited land, and certainly not by stealing and killing and oppressing as the Zionists are doing. They've hijacked the name Israel, they've hijacked the Star of David and all our symbols. They made it an ersatz Judaism, it's a false Judaism, and they claim anti-Semitism if you oppose them. This is patently false. On the contrary, Judaism calls for the total removal of this occupation. God should help. This removal should happen speedily and peacefully nowadays.
So yeah, it can't get much clearer than that, right? That Jews do not equal Zionists. They are not synonymous. You are not as Ben Shapiro would call it, a bad Jew for not being a Zionist. It's pretty clear that like any other kind of faith, people, system of belief, there's going to be lots of variations within it because that's how people are. That's not how Jews are. That's not how Palestinians or Muslims are. That's not how white people are. That's just how people are. They're going to have various viewpoints on things for various reasons. And when we have these arguments, we have to be able to come to the conclusion that certain things are wrong. And we recognize, we're taught in the wake of World War II, the genocide of the Jews, the Holocaust, was wrong, expressly wrong. So wrong that fascism and Nazism and those terms are immediately met with ire, even if you're not that politically aware. You know that these are fundamentally bad things that people simply cannot accept. This is a mainstream idea, right? And same with 9/11, the terrorists that killed 3,000 Americans on 9/11. We all recognize they did a bad thing, right? Universal. Why is this not universal? Why is the plight of the Palestinians not a universal idea? Watching the dehumanization of these people it tells me that as a species, as an international community, we have not learned a goddamn thing from the horrible past.
Yeah, not just that, but of the Palestinians still in Gaza, what, 50% of them are children?
Yeah, about half the population are children.
And so what does that say about the exterminationist measures taken against the population?
Yeah.
Like, you don't just by chance have a population that is half children.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
like
that's not an accident.
That's not a natural thing that happens.
Yeah.
That isn't like just a fluke of like, well, that's quirky, I guess, for some reason. For some reason, their life expectancy isn't that high.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could be something, could be nothing.
And not to mention, as the response to Hamas, supposedly killing at least 40 infants in their act, about 700. The last I read, 700 Palestinian children were killed by Israeli bombs in the past 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an equal response.
No. And so who's the current president of Israel?
Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah. Was he the one who went on saying that they're basically like letting everyone know, not doing this surreptitiously, letting everyone know that the response to Hamas's attack on Israelis was to shut off the
I
water
believe that
and
was
power.
Their Minister of Defense.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was him
but
directly.
Pretty much most Israeli officials that have gotten in front of the microphone in the past little while have made it quite explicit.
Yeah,
what they intend to do.
Yeah, and so what they
and
said,
not even like blinking. No, the dehumanization of themselves by saying that. By saying we are going to completely kill these people and level their land.
Mm-hmm.
And
completely kill.
We're going to feel real good about it.
A population that's half children.
Yeah.
So we are going to commit horrific war crimes against a child population who.
And much like 9/11, there's a lot of intel that suggests that Israeli authorities were aware that an attack from Hamas was coming, and basically seeing it as a political opportunity and conveniently ignored some of this information.
No.
this is obviously not going to become a mainstream talking point in our end of the world. But, this is something that is a distinct possibility. And their reaction kind of says as much. There have been a lot of bloodthirsty people who have, and greedy, because as you point out here, I'll pull up this tweet that you showed me.
Mm-hmm.
Not only bloodthirsty, but just straight up greedy for blood money. They don't care where they get their money from. If it's covered in blood, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That wanted to see all of Palestine destroyed, and how convenient that a very, very heinous attack happened, and now 1,200 people died, and now an entire population has to be eradicated from the face of the earth because
2
of it.
million.
2 million people.
Yep.
And 3,000 people died in 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
A million, I believe it was about 1 million Iraqis were killed in the course of their war.
Yeah.
And how we can universally, pretty much universally, recognize world as an international community that America's war in Iraq was illegal, horrible, unforgivable, badly done.
The war crimes keep going.
The war crimes
Gitmo
kept going.
is not.
Gitmo's still open.
Gitmo has not been decommissioned and closed.
Yeah, and so as an international community, we can all kind of recognize that's fucked up. But for some reason, Israel is exempt from this expectation, or we are trained to think about it in such a way and propagandized in such a way that Muslims bad, Jewish good, therefore whatever Israel does to the Palestinian people must be okay. I'm sure there's a reason. They must have had their reasons. I'm sure.
And the thing about both sides-isms of, the Israeli apathy against the Palestinians is that one side controls the land borders. They put up impenetrable fencing, and they also destroyed the airport in Gaza, and then they also control the sea and ensured no escape by sea. So one side, singular side, has the power to do that, and also to cut off all access to power and water and food and supplies. And
then there's also this.
And then there's also that.
So, telling them to leave, giving them an evacuation route.
Giving over 1 million citizens or resident. I don't know how they refer.
And this is essentially if you had forced 1 million people to evacuate from their homes
in 24 hours.
Within 24 hours. If this happened fucking anywhere else, the human rights atrocity that we would call it, again, as an international community, we'd be pretty united on this. Of course, there would be outliers, but I can't help but to think we'd be pretty united on the idea of forcing the evacuation of 1 million people because you want to bomb where they are is an act of genocide.
That's not even a feasible, reasonable thing to do with the natural disaster incoming. Move 1 million people.
Yeah,
that's not a thing.
And what do we have Americans doing? What do we have the most powerful politicians in the world doing? Just nodding along.
Yeah.
How? Where is the humanity? What is there any saving us at this point? I'm so baffled by that kind of rhetoric and this attitude that we have towards these suffering people. That not everyone is collectively losing their minds about this alone, let alone everything else. Just the first half of that photo that's up on the screen. That should have people losing their fucking minds. No. Let alone the second half.
No.
The level of tragedy upon tragedy, monstrous sickness committed on fellow human beings, and the passive attitude that we have collectively had about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. There are no words.
Mm.
There are no words.
No.
How do you even begin to wrap your head around something like that? And to reference what I was referring to earlier about how when politicians do speak up for Palestine, the kind of response that they get. Here is Dog Turd with a blonde wig on. Let's just call him Dog Turd. Doug Ford. As Premier, I'm doing what Mary Stiles won't.
Shut the fuck up.
First of all, Merritt Stiles, the leader of the Ontario NDP, had a shitty response to this as well. She condemned Sarah Jama. Sarah Jama is a provincial member of parliament out of the Hamilton area, and she's NDP. And NDP leader Merritt Stiles denounced her own MP for speaking in just mere sympathy of Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like anything remotely like, I approve of what Hamas did. Like, it wasn't even in the ballpark, man.
No.
And the response that she got was horrendous. So this coming from a conservative is less surprising, but the spinelessness of Merritt Stiles is extremely disappointing. Very disappointing. I hope she changes her attitude about this. I've seen communications from within the NDP kind of floating around Twitter, like emails and stuff like that, basically saying how maybe because of public response, they should be a little more careful about how they talk about this. And it's like, yeah, no shit. Like maybe they're learning something. Maybe all the protests that they've experienced, maybe they're figuring something out from that. But anyway, this moron, Sarah Jama has a long and well-documented history of anti-Semitism. No, she does not.
No.
Again, this is disgusting fucking racism just because she's Muslim. Merritt Stiles and the Ontario NDP have proven time and time again that they tolerate these hateful views. What do you call Merritt Stiles denouncing her own party member, which is something you hardly ever see happen? If you have like straight up fucking Nazis in the Conservative Party that this asshole doesn't denounce.
Yeah.
Fuck this. Like, god damn it. It's so enraging. Nearly 24 hours after Miss Jama's disturbing statement. Again, I'll pull up that statement in a minute, actually. I'll find it. But it was not disturbing.
No.
She basically expressed sympathy because Palestinians are getting bombed.
Yeah. And so she made the mistake of not doing the...
I don't support terrorism, by the way.
Yeah, of like, I support
like
Palestinians, but not
in
Hamas.
parentheses every 3 words.
I-
Not Hamas.
yeah.
Not Hamas.
Yeah,
I don't like
exactly.
Hamas.
Yeah.
Nobody likes Hamas.
So that was her error.
And it's amazing how, like, no conservative has ever felt the need to be like, not Nazis, by the way. I denounce Nazis. I just think immigrants are, like, really bad, and they shouldn't be coming into our country. Not a Nazi, by the way.
No.
They don't feel that need.
That's because they don't want to alienate their base.
Yeah, no shit, right?
No.
As Premier, I'm doing what Miss Stiles won't, calling on Sarah Jama to resign immediately as a member of provincial parliament. Her views do not represent Ontario. Buddy, your views don't represent Ontario.
Shouldn't
Fuck
he be?
you.
Shouldn't
You
he
should be in jail.
Yeah, shouldn't he be too busy speaking with the RCMP?
Yeah,
to
guy who's
put out
being
statements
investigated
like
by the RCMP for fucking corruption thinks he
Yeah.
has something to say here.
Yeah, so maybe I'd shut the trap.
And the really good responses I've seen from this, actually, like read some of the replies to this, because it will be uplifting. At least the common person has their head on straight with this, or at least some of the common people have their head on straight about this. Over the past 7 days, I have been exposed to so much horrendously hateful content that even when I see something that isn't necessarily hateful, If it's just like spoken with a certain rhetoric, I find myself like feeling like, no, fuck you, man. And then it's like, no, that's not actually what they're saying. And you read it again, and you're like, oh, it's actually supportive of our position.
Well, and that's the
but
thing is
because
that-
but that's how, like, strung up your emotions get sometimes about
yeah,
stuff like
I
this.
mean, that's the thing that you know, things just keep happening, and it is exhausting, and it is just emotionally draining and triggering. And you know, we're supposed to continuously participate in capitalism to keep a roof over our heads, and we don't even have time to protest and center ourselves and regulate our nervous systems. And yeah, so
So this is David Hurst in this video. I'm honestly don't know much of a background. Oh, he's editor-in-chief of the Middle East Eye. But I very much appreciated what he was calling out in this video, and I think it's, pretty on point with a lot of what we're saying here.
If anyone is guilty for the bloodshed that's going on, it is the international community, particularly Britain.
He's British, so obviously he has a position to say particularly Britain. I don't know if that's particularly Britain, though, because from my side of the world, seems like particularly America. So I guess it depends on where you're standing. And by the way, I just wanted to say I'm keeping the corner image smaller because it's a bit graphic at some point, word to the wise. So I just didn't want that to be super large on the screen as he's talking about this stuff. But I also didn't want to hide it because I don't condone taking in torture porn and self-flagellating yourself that way. But also, to a certain extent, it needs to be seen. So, yeah, here.
The international community has given the greenest of green lights to the Israeli army to do what it wants. And that means the freedom to commit war crimes. You'll see Western values as they actually operate, raining down bombs on completely innocent Gazans.
Yeah, that shot in particular. I appreciate his phrasing here. It's in no explicit terms, and it's something we don't hear in the Western world often enough. You will see Western values on display. This is what we are to the rest of the world. We look at ourselves over here as, the most rational, most advanced, the most progressive, and conveniently don't see this part.
it's because we're full of shit.
Yeah. Raining down bombs on completely innocent Gazan civilians. That's our values. That's what we're promoting. That's what our governments are doing. Okay?
Bombs on completely innocent Gazan civilians. Whether they're supporters of Hamas, Fatah, whether they're civilians, they're going to die and are dying in their thousands. Where are Western values there? If there's blood on anyone's hands, it's on those who say
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Israel has the perfect right to defend itself.
Israel has a right to defend itself.
Israel must have that, does have that right to defend herself.
Does Palestine?
Yeah. So one thing I'd like to sort of corollary in here is so it's the same sort of thing that happened with we were talking about this earlier with Iraq being a perfect recruitment tool for extremists and terrorists, because
you want Hamas to get more members?
well, I mean,
That's
like,
how you do it.
So I mean, this isn't unique to the Middle East. Basically, this is a predictable result when you have vulnerable populations. No one is giving you any kind of reasonable, safe solutions. But then, some unhinged dudes from Hamas are like, you know what, I have a solution.
Yeah.
So that doesn't exclude Hamas, but it just speaks to you can't have entire communities that are just razed to the ground and just expect them to
Like
be
if you-
exterminated nicely,
Yeah.
right? Like, give them options. Let them either let them fucking leave because they're in an open air fucking prison. Give them agency. Give them their fucking land back. You've given them literally no options. Like, you've bombed the bridge going out. They have no airport. They can't leave by sea. They can't leave by Egypt. Like, fucking Christ on a cracker. I'm not, and if anyone uses this to say I'm excusing terrorism, fuck off. Like, there comes a point when you create a community
see
that
my
is
keyboard
so
down there in case you-
unspeakably desperate that, like, what the fuck else are they gonna do?
And this is the sort of stuff that's now becoming casual. Like your typical, oh, maybe he deleted the tweet.
Mm.
Okay, but well, I'm just gonna post, open image in new tab. Gonna show this because this has been tweeted by several like people supporting Israel, and I want you to recognize that depicting your enemy and an entire people's as insects, literal insects.
Mm-hmm.
This is absolutely classic Nazi propaganda. This is Nazism, what you're about to see. Okay, and this is the kind of stuff that's now just like readily. This is acceptable to the greater mainstream. It's so acceptable that Israeli government officials were sharing this image in celebration. That the IDF are going to squash these Palestinian insects, right? I want it to sink in a certain way with folks that just how far over the edge we are with this. This is where we're at. Stuff that we were taught, that we learned better, and we swore never again.
No.
And here it is again.
Like to point out how that caricature is clearly not under the age of 18.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact of the majority of the population.
Yeah. They depicted it as like an old guy, gray hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Everything is
so like it's
exhausting.
just like it's hard to digest this level of just like monstrousness.
Yeah.
And it's hard to look it in the face, but like we have to, because if we don't, it's gonna keep happening.
Well, I mean, it's gonna keep happening.
It's gonna keep happening probably regardless. Yeah. Maybe.
But like our on an individual level, folks with zero political clout, money, etc., we can't turn the boat around on this. But the small thing that we do have is power in numbers, and our governments respond well. As Jessica said, Israel doesn't even let Palestinians peacefully protest, but we can.
Yeah, and apparently Israel isn't even allowing Israelis to protest.
Yeah. So
if you want to talk about like a fascist fucking state, man, like
yeah. So I'm just saying that I'm not saying it begins and ends with protest. I'm saying that from a Canadian point of view, what we can do is, pardon me, like really push our leaders to decry this, to call for a ceasefire.
Yeah. That's why I was happy to see those internal emails that I was talking about earlier within the NDP, basically like talking about like, they like it's saying in very kind of soft political language that maybe they shouldn't be so quick to hop on certain things.
Yeah.
And it's just like good. You're listening to your voter base on this, and as you should.
Yeah. So like the most urgent pressing thing I think is ceasefire. Cease right the fuck now. And so I don't know how much we can influence, but just keep tagging, emailing, letter writing, show up at the fucking office for your local politicians, push them to push Canada to make a strong statement on ceasefire.
Yeah, if we can push the NDP on a provincial level, you can push them on a federal level. And if we can push Jagmeet Singh to basically, he has his deal with the Liberals where they're working together a lot to basically overcome conservative influence in a number of ways. Deal's off, man.
Yeah.
That's where Jagmeet should meet Trudeau on this. Like, if you want this coalition and this relationship to continue to be convenient for you, you got to meet us on this, and that's the sort of pressure that we have the power to apply. And so yeah, it's just straight up, Israel is committing genocide on Palestinians. They've been doing it for 70 years, but they've opened the floodgates now. They've opened them, and they're saying, you know what?
And
we're just going to kill the whole
publishing
fucking lot of them.
Yeah.
And not only is the world watching, they're applauding it.
Yeah.
And sit with that, just really let it sink in that this is what we as people of the world are letting happen. I think it can't be ignored or shouldn't be ignored. We need to stand with Palestinian people. We need to understand that Islamophobia is ridiculous and has no place in the same capacity that anti-Semitism has no place. In that, kind of speaking, going back earlier, because I kind of diverted from a few topics as I was trying to get things together on the screen there. The reason a lot of conservatives and far right-wing people you would normally understand as having pretty anti-Semitic values, the reason a lot of them are super pro-Israel is not only because of the political convenience of having a foothold in the Middle East for imperialist intentions, but who is the Mike Pompeo in the Trump administration, evangelical Christian, right? He's kind of I was just reading earlier about how he was expressing ideas about this. I think I had it on my phone. Hopefully I can find it again. Anyway, Mike Pompeo, and along with a lot of other zealot type people in the Trump administration on the far right in the Republican Party, basically the intent of a lot of evangelicals of various stripes of Israel being a Jewish nation is that it's within their biblical prophecy that the events of Revelation cannot take place until Jews are completely in charge of Israel. They are wishing for the biblical events of Revelation to take place. And if you're not familiar with what Revelations is,
then watch the TV series The Brink.
Yeah.
That came out in 2015, because that will.
I mean, that was a really funny show, but also pretty eye-opening in a lot of ways too.
But kind of mirrors this whole shit.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, it does.
Yeah. So if you want to get an idea of what it means for evangelicals to be called a death cult, who think that more will bring about the second coming or whatever.
They see the end of times, the events of Revelations, Judgment Day, as being a good thing that they need to usher along.
Yeah.
It's that's patently insane.
Yeah.
Yes. And it sounds almost conspiratorial, like, ooh, I'm being like scary about the Christians and stuff. I'm being completely serious. This is a real thing they freaking believe, man.
Yeah.
They don't say it a lot on TV because it sounds insane.
Because it is insane.
Because it is.
Yeah.
But yes, that is absolutely their belief.
So legitimately, if you want a quasi lighthearted way to delve into that, watch The Brink.
Yeah, The Brink. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people haven't seen it because anytime I bring it up to people, they're just like never heard of it, and it's just like freaking Jack Black's in it, man.
Yeah. Jack Black and Tim Robbins.
Yeah, Tim Robbins.
Yeah,
yeah.
who's just a gift.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant. He's
Yeah.
brilliant in that show. Love his character.
Yeah. So anyway, watch the show.
It's
It's 2015, so it's not like we're getting
yeah, it's from
endorsements or
2015.
anything. But
yeah.
you know.
So yeah, that's I think you know, the most I can say on this topic right now. I've been just absorbing so much of it over the past week, and trying to get my thoughts and feelings in order in terms of how I was going to get this off my chest and express it, and try and, you know, get anybody who's listening to feel something about this.
Mhm.
You know,
I mean, for our listeners, they're
yeah,
probably
our
feeling
listeners,
pretty
yeah.
fucking deeply about it anyways.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and yeah, that's all I have to say on the topic for now.
so let's hope that tomorrow morning we wake up and there's a ceasefire.
Yeah,
Right? Like we
Yeah.
can always go to bed and hope that tomorrow something good happens, right?
yeah. So yeah, like Nat said earlier, you know, put the pressure on your local politicians to call for a ceasefire. That is something that's within
And-
our possibility to accomplish.
And if you have better ideas, for love of God, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's insane and disgusting to think that yes, the country that was carved out in the Middle East in the wake of World War II, because of the Holocaust, they said, you know, yeah,
Never
Jewish people
again.
never again. So we're going to give the Jewish people a homeland, and this is where we're going to put it. And it started off with the Nakba, the relocation of a bunch of Palestinians to even allow this to happen in the first place. Already off to a wrong foot there, right? So, let alone everything that happened after. So in the wake of a genocide or a genocide attempt, however you want to phrase that,
I think it's fair to call that genocide.
is it because yeah, sometimes I get a little absolutist in my thinking of that word, where it's
No.
you know,
like we call the Rwandan genocide.
yeah,
Like it's not that
okay,
there's no
okay,
Rwandans
yeah,
left
exactly.
anymore.
Like
right?
I get so thinking it's like, well, it's not a genocide if some of them
No,
are
it
still
is.
here, but it's just yes,
Well, it's
that
just like-
absolutely qualifies.
well,
I'm just being
it's just like
semantic in my own brain.
the genocide of the native populations in North America.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, exactly.
genocide,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter that there's some left.
Yeah,
like, it's
I
still
should,
a genocide.
yeah, you're right. I shouldn't pat it with attempted genocide. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the events of that the same group of people affected by this is now committing those same crimes. It's hard to wrap your head around, but it's, you know, that's kind of, it's a bit of the complexity of human nature that, you know, people are complicated, and people aren't just Jewish. People aren't just Israeli. People aren't, you know, just one thing that determines the whole of what they are and what they represent.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
Well, it's like, you know, what some black folks say about Candace Owens, for example,
Yeah.
is kinfolk, or skin folk ain't always kinfolk sort
Yeah.
of deal.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
people who have demographic similarities with you are duty.
yeah, Eve Fartlow, as everybody likes to call her. This woman is insane. Yeah, I'll show this tweet because she's just like this classic example of like the Zionist viewpoint being genocidal and just not freaking hearing yourself. Like just listen to yourselves, people.
Hmm.
Like, how do you have this thought pass through your brain, type it out, hit enter, and that's how you're going to leave that. Of course, she has her replies turned off because anytime she tweets anything, everybody makes fun of her because her thoughts are stupid as dog shit. But yeah, anyway, here, I'll try and get it a little more blown up on the screen here. Israel is the only country in the world that has to deal with requests for proportionality. Actually,
Really though?
that's
Really, though?
that's an international war crime thing.
That's
Actually,
I think they talked about that at Geneva. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
That's literally part of the Geneva Conventions when you're talking about like violent retaliation and what is proportional and what isn't. No, right off the bat, you're fucking wrong.
Yeah.
And then to go on to say, for Israel to be proportionate in response, it would have to find a music festival in Gaza, murder, rape, and capture as many innocents and terrorize an entire group as possible. What do you think they've been doing for 70 fucking years?
Yeah.
Again, not unprompted, people. This terrorist attack did just come out of nowhere. Stop lying and spreading ignorant rhetoric, she says. Like, just, oh my God, that is so frustrating to fucking read. You don't know what you're dealing with, and you don't care for human life. Stop it. Stop feeding the beast of terror. There is no proportionate response to a genocidal regime and culture.
Ouch.
Do you fucking hear yourself? Because, you know, that 129 quote tweets that are right there because your replies are turned off? Guess what they're all saying? Oh, we're so glad that Eve Barlow has decided to recognize Israel as the genocidal regime that it is.
Yeah.
She must be talking about Israel. Because, of course, if she was talking about Hamas or, as they like to fudge it in their brains, Palestinians, that would be very stupid.
Can you even call Hamas a regime?
Like, I guess,
I mean,
not.
like
7% of all Palestinians voted for Hamas when they originally took power in the first place. So it's not like, you know, they have an overwhelming amount of support amongst Palestinians. Far from.
Yeah.
Far fucking from.
Anyway, TLDR, no. If I had a water bottle, I'd just be like...
Yeah, like
No.
Everything this woman tweets is just horrible and stupid. And yeah, it's again, there's a reason that her replies are off. You cannot directly respond to her tweets. And she keeps it that way. Because, yeah. Anyway, I can get that off the screen. Oh, yeah, because I wanted to pull up the other thing. Moving on to a slightly different topic here to wrap up the show in the last 5 minutes.
So things are fine in Canada.
Yeah. So, yeah, here, I'll get the little headline up there. After double-digit rent hike, High Park tenants consider how to fight back together. So we were talking about the rent strike on our episode from 2 weeks ago.
And this is a different building.
Yeah, different building.
Yeah.
So this is an article from the CBC. Tenants say they're facing rent increases of up to 12%. Now, if you're paying like High Park residents probably are, say somewhere in the ballpark of, $1,200 or so. $3,000 for probably a larger one bedroom or maybe a smaller 2-bedroom. $3,000 is probably where they're at. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more. So a rent increase where your landlord tells you, yeah, by the way, in 90 days, you're going to be paying $360 extra on top of your already exceedingly high rent, is insane. $360 to some people might be chump change, but that is no small number to most people, especially when the majority or at least half of all Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. It's because of all the fucking rent they're paying. So yeah, the what is it? You had texted me some of the highlights from this article here, so let's go over that. The building's property manager, GWL Realty Advisors, did not agree to an interview with CBC Toronto. However, in an email, the spokesperson said the Tenants Association hadn't responded to the company's most recent email sent on July 31st. It also said it had addressed many of the concerns raised in a letter from the association sent in April, signed by more than 500 tenants. But Cynthia Black and Ben Scott, tenants who have helped the association organize, say that GWL Realty Advisors did not address their chief concern, which is the cost of high rent. Of course, that's the one they're going to conveniently ignore. The shoddy wiring and the leaky ceilings. We did something about that, so that's really good.
We sent a guy over
No
with
other
the
problems.
roll of
Okay,
duct
good.
tape.
Thanks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
So in the July 31st email from GWL, reviewed by CBC Toronto, the company said it does not negotiate collectively with residents.
Oh, I
Of
wonder
course.
why.
It's just a matter of policy, of course.
I wonder why they wouldn't.
Just a matter of policy.
Yeah, I wouldn't wonder why they wouldn't want to give tenants more power.
Yeah.
By letting them band together.
Oh,
and
yeah, we don't
negotiate.
do this sort of thing around here.
Yeah.
It's like a company that isn't unionized yet.
Yeah.
So
Don't,
being like,
don't
"Oh,
talk
we
about
don't-
your wages.
Yeah, we don't collectively bargain here.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
You'll get fired if you ask anybody else what their wages are.
Yeah, yeah.
The same spirit.
Well, it's funny that I don't think you can get. Oh, I accidentally reacted to your
I know.
message. It's. Oh, I totally. Yeah, the messenger being
Anyway,
trippy.
so
What?
they said
Distracted me.
Yeah, GWLRA also said that each rental unit is priced differently, and every person's economic circumstances varies and is highly personal. So they want that to seem like a rational
John.
statement. Like, that's not a rational statement to say that each rental unit is priced differently.
Yeah.
Like, how is that your tenant's problem for you to deal with?
Yeah.
Right? How is that their issue to square? And that every person's economic circumstances varies and is highly personal.
Yeah.
Excuse you?
That's literally
Why
the same
my
thing
rent?
you hear at jobs, like, because I think if I remember my work law
Yeah.
correctly, they can't fire you for discussing wages. Like, there
No.
can't be immediate repercussions for that. They're not allowed to do that. But
Mm.
they can discourage it, right? They can be like, we'd rather you didn't, and have
Yeah.
so many words around that. And that's one of the things. One of the things I've heard in my employment life when it came to that subject from a boss was, everybody's on their own journey.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
But no,
yeah,
seriously,
that was-
going back to them saying that each rental unit is priced differently and every person's economic circumstances varies and is highly personal. Fuck you. You are not entitled to know about my economic circumstances
Yeah.
and my personal situation.
But lo and behold,
Like-
they are. Because, the ridiculous amount of information you're expected to give over to a landlord
Yeah.
in order to get a fucking apartment in this country is ridiculous. Like,
Complete
they
loony
get
bin.
to know literally everything about you, these
Yeah.
creepy bastards.
And so they want you to what, grovel and bring grandma's ashes and what the fuck? Like, that is to try to make that as a rational statement as to why some people's rent should be higher or lower than others.
Yeah.
Fuck your entire face.
Okay, so if you so you want to have scaled rent based on income, is that what you want?
Yeah.
Is that what you're leaning towards, landlords?
Yeah. So that it stays under 30%, which is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
recommendation. Yeah, is
Well,
that where we're going?
Yeah, I think we.
That's
I think
pretty
we have an
neat.
agreement here.
All right.
I think we're on the right track.
That's nifty. I'm glad we're finally seeing eye to eye. In a separate email to CBC Toronto, a corporate spokesperson said that the company sets annual rent according to market conditions and that many units at the Livermore High Park are well below actual market rents in the area. Okay. Company did
below.
Company did not respond directly to a detailed list of questions for the story.
Yeah.
So
Such as, prove that your rents are lower.
but also compared to
evidence do you
market below actual market rents. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
Just because your neighbors are gouging people more,
Yeah.
am I supposed to
Yeah.
say thank you, sir? May I have another?
And
what the
not
shit?
only that, it's such a misnomer because the entire market is high and fucked.
Yeah.
And so how
I'm
how
supposed to
below?
grovel about it.
Yeah,
cool beans. So here's a quote from another tenant. When he moved in, Scott says he was assured the landlord wanted to keep good tenants and that rent wouldn't increase significantly despite the lack of rent control in the building. He added that there hasn't been any service, maintenance, or amenity improvements in the past year, or any that are planned in the coming year to justify the increases.
Yeah.
So
it's just straight profits. It's just,
Yeah.
I would like more money.
yeah, just
I own this building.
yeah,
You have to live in it. I want more money.
give me more money.
Yeah, just give me.
Yeah.
Like when you want to talk about fucking welfare queens
Yeah,
and people asking for handouts,
Yeah.
look no further than landlords.
so anyways, landlords, fuck yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
And if you're a landlord and you think that I'm talking about you,
yes, we are. Yes, we
Like,
are absolutely. Take it
if you were
so
offended,
personally.
if
Be
you were
very
offended by
yeah.
what I said, then
Be
you are
very
that
offended.
kind of landlord. If you don't do this, if you don't do any of the shit that we're talking about, then it's not about you. Don't fucking worry about it.
Yeah. It'll also it's still about you because, like, as our buddy John here said in the chat, end landlordism.
I mean, we need to nationalize housing,
Yeah.
right? Like, housing is a human right. I don't think we should. We've tried the experiment of leaving it up to individuals and corporations.
But
they
I'm
can't be
one of
fucking
the
trusted.
good landlords. Yeah, nobody just collects passive income like that. It's not good.
When it's
you
like,
know?
if you are the 1% of good landlords,
I mean, everybody collects passive income. Like, not everybody, sorry, but like capitalists collect passive income, but they're not good. So, you know.
well, and that's just the thing, is that if you are the 1% who, is the good landlord, you're rubbing elbows with fucking dickweeds, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I can't defend you given how everyone is being crushed under the
Yeah.
weight.
It's a fundamentally parasitic thing. Unless unless you as a landlord are making zero profit off of your tenant, and in fact your tenant is also building equity, seen as they are essentially
paying your mortgage.
Yeah. Then I wouldn't consider you a landlord actually at that point. That is a much more astute way of describing of providing housing. That's what I would call that. That isn't even landlordism at that point.
What is
right?
a good landlord? I don't know what James is just
Yeah,
saying.
exactly. Yeah, I would say a good landlord, you end up not being a landlord. That's what it's same with good cops. You know,
Yeah.
a good cop is one that quits.
Yeah.
Being a cop. That's when the day that they decide to be good is the day they put down the badge forever, right?
Yeah.
So same with landlords.
Yeah, and like by the time we leave here after renting this place for 3 years, we'll have paid upwards of $75,000-$80,000 with nothing to show for.
Yeah, we'll have zero stake in this property,
Yeah.
despite our massive investment in it.
Yeah, all we will have to show for is that we weren't homeless during this time.
Yeah,
Cool beans.
great.
This is
So
a perfect
so glad.
system.
Very good system. Talk to your local officials about expressing the need for a ceasefire, expressing the need to support Palestinians and Muslims, as Islamophobic rhetoric is at an all-time high.
And also
like,
at this,
post 9/11 levels
Yeah.
is where we're at.
and at the same time, fight back against any anti-Semitism that comes up, because you know those fuckers trying to wiggle their fucking faces in too. So just like shut them all down, tell them all to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we
Yeah.
know the weasels try and use this shit.
Yeah.
And at the same time, maybe talk to them about nationalizing rent as well,
Yeah.
so that
so
that
if you
so
are
that-
in fact a renter,
Yeah.
yeah, and like even if you're the type of person who's like, I want to be able to afford a home someday, maybe I don't think landlording is so bad because what if I wanted to make money off the investment properties? It's like, oh, are you renting right now? Do you even own a house yet? Do you want to be possible for you to own a house?
Is it feasible for you to
'Cause this is
save
where it
because
starts.
the amount
Yeah.
that
Like
you're
the
paying?
market is so freaking inflated and we're not doing
Yeah.
anything about that
Yeah.
one of the things we can do to help control that is nationalize housing.
Literally.
Take profit out of this equation. And that
And
sounds
then-
like a lofty goal, but let's aim high and maybe we'll get something good. And maybe we won't get everything we want, but maybe we'll get something really good.
Yeah, because if we nationalize housing, and if we what's a word when you take things from private ownership? So
like nationalizing. I think that's just like making it public, like
yeah,
public
like
ownership.
yeah, like let's say all these folks who have purchased condos as investment properties and just had them stood vacant.
Oh yeah, yeah. Repossess them or repurpose them. Is that what you're
Anyway,
getting at?
whatever word that I'm thinking of that I can't think of that. If we do that and we nationalize housing and we stabilize the rate for housing, look how many more refugees and stuff that we can bring in from Palestine. Because honestly, if you bring, I can ask Canada to bring in all 1.1 million. Where the fuck is anybody going to go? And that isn't me saying that don't do immigration. That's me saying we need to improve circumstances for everybody, including immigrants.
The Samson option is the name that some military analysts and authors have given to Israel's deterrent strategy of massive retaliation with nuclear weapons.
We need to read that because I don't.
Yeah,
think that
no,
either
like
of us-
I've kind of gotten only on the fringes of that, like in terms of like, yes, I am aware.
I'm not aware.
Israel has nuclear weapons. In that it might be a concern that they could use them. I think from where they're sitting right now, just even geographically, they probably don't want to do that.
I think it seems insane to think that they would.
Yeah.
Because
like,
isn't the point that they move in?
Yeah, exactly. They kind of want to use that land, and probably
so
don't want to
irradiate it.
their own population.
Yeah, so that seems like a weird option, but I'll have to read it because I don't really understand it.
And but the thing is, think of it this way: Russia has weapons. Does everybody run to Russia's defense? Do we, as an international community, run to Russia's defense?
I don't know. Ask the
no.
Ask the GOP.
Yeah, right. Yeah, certain people within the GOP, that's for sure. But for the most part, we're pretty united, for better or worse, or however you feel about that. We're pretty united on the geopolitical foreign policy level as a country, as a continent. Russia bad, generally speaking. So and it's a concern that they have nuclear weapons. So, I don't see that as being the reason that Canada and the U.S. would jump to Israel's defense. I think the reason they would do that is sooner political expediency, because they have a very, very dependable ally in the Middle East. That is a huge benefit to them. Not to mention, as if you watch earlier in the episode where we talk about evangelicals and Bible prophecy and how there's a lot of insane people in American politics and Canadian politics that believe and want that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think in this particular situation Israel possessing nuclear weapons is a major factor. Yeah, that's a little out there for me. Yeah, I don't think that's. I mean, it's possible for the U.S. to do that. It's possible for Russia to do that again. So the idea that Israel, I don't know. It just that doesn't scream rational to me. And just not that any of this is particularly rational, right? But even considering how irrational things are, I just don't see that being a possibility. Especially because think of Israel, major cities around the world. Does that include the U.S.? Is the U.S. Is the U.S. even mildly aware of that? Israel's perfectly willing to fire a nuclear weapon at us. We should continue to support that. It doesn't seem very American to me.
Are we talking about the evangelicals still? Because
maybe.
Anyway, one last thing I want to bring up, because I realize it's going to happen before the next show. Next week is the second run of the Million Moms for Fascism. So next Saturday, if you don't got nothing to do, then maybe do some counter protesting.
Yeah, is that happening here in Ottawa?
I haven't seen any dates, but it'd be worth checking and looking.
It's you know what's funny about the Million Moms thing to me is it's so gimmicky in that like you look at this crowd and there's definitely not a million moms and the majority of the crowd is definitely not moms. It's just it's a bit of an aside, but just like their use of that moms are concerned sort of rhetoric, and then you look at them, it's just like this is just a bunch of fucking Nazi dudes for the most part.
Yeah. So anyway, and all that's to say is that we'll cover that in more depth next week.
Yeah. And if it's happening in Ottawa, maybe we'll be down there counter protesting ourselves. Who knows?
Who the fuck knows? We'll find out together.
A lot of time, like this stuff happens when I'm working. So it's like unless I know a good portion in advance where I can book the time off of the old wage job, I don't make it out to those things as much as I'd like. I think the last time I was really part of a good counter protest was Pride Hamilton a few years back, and basically standing and holding the big banners that blocked out the hate signs and stuff like that. But yeah,
cool beans. Anyways, plenty to talk about next week.
All right.
We'll see how everything goes. Let's fingers crossed that we'll wake up tomorrow and there's peace and everyone's happy and safe.
Yep. And we'll get the theme song going in the background here. All right, so tune in next week. That's going to be October 22nd. We'll be talking about the Million Moms March that's apparently happening soon. And if you have any ideas or anything you want to even call in and talk to us about, let us know. Shoot an email. Message me on one of these platforms off to the side here. Send me a message. This has been the Rough Report. Stay rough.